The following information is collated from a few wide-ranging conversations between Bill and Gideon covering many topics. This is Intel Drop 30. The banking collapse has initiated the reset.
This banking crisis, which almost perfectly fits in with some of your predictions way back last year, it's fitting the timeline perfectly. It's playing out exactly how you said.
Unfortunately, it is. I would like it to be wrong, but here we are. Also, credit should not so much go to myself, but rather the whistleblowers and my sources, who have guided me with excellent information and intel the past year.
You hear all these takes on why the banking crisis is happening. Some people think of it as the big banks were irresponsible, so they'll want a bailout. That's not really what it is though, is it?
No. These are not accidents. This is not a symptom of bad capitalism. This is by design. The cabal is well aware the fiat system has been on life support for 10 or 20 years, and they have just used that to their advantage to create this new system. These staged crises just lead to the cabal using fiat to buy up enormous amounts of USDR. We will see more banking contagion spread, leading to the point they will justify the need for CBDCs, which is to say, ultimately, CSRQ and USDR. We know the exact date they plan to bring it all online, and what is playing out now appears to perfectly fit into that timeline.
You've spoken about how ready they are, in terms of the CBDCs, and I've posted tons of articles on Twitter and Telegram backing that up. It looks like it's really close to launch.
It is ready now. They could initiate it right now. They will not, because more needs to be in place in terms of how the public will interface with it, and they are doing many tests of that right now. They also need to collapse a lot of the banks and consolidate them, which they are doing now.
What about the ISO 20022 crypto coins, like XRP, XLM, QNT, HBR? Where do they fit into this?
They are integral to the digital system, but they are not the actual digital currency itself. They are not USDR. They help with transfer protocols.
Are they worth buying or owning? We've spoken about them before, I just thought I'd ask again.
If you were to own cryptos, you would want to own them, yes, but they will be repriced in USDR eventually. The capital markets will be totally cut off to the average person. So, this reset that is coming requires a person to reorient their thinking, because the free market is over and they will not have access to it based on their CSRQ class designation. Additionally, the ultimate crypto you would want is USDR itself, above all else, but it is classified and a closed blockchain.
So if they hold, let's say XRP, what will happen after the reset?
To buy or sell it via USDR, they will have to register with regulated exchanges via their biometric ID. Since their USDR holdings will be severely restricted, they will be allowed to sell a very small portion of XRP, very small, and, in fact, probably negligible. The closure of the fiat on and off ramps is what will seize up the crypto markets dramatically. It will leave behind a barter system, but we expect the cabal to issue bans and enforcement against that.
Can people do anything with their fiat to preserve it? Is there any strategy?
Certainly, our sovereigns are privy to what that is. For everyone else, it would be better to have some crypto than keep your funds in a bank, far better. This is because at least by holding some of the ISO coins, or even Ethereum, which is expected to exist after the reset, you will possibly have a chance to use it through bartering methods post-reset. But it is hard to know if this will exist or work, since you will have no access to fiat, which is to say, USDR, beyond your monthly allotment. Your coins may just end up sitting idle, or you will be unable to sell them.
Just to clarify for new readers, what's going to happen to the money that's in their bank right now?
It will be converted to the new digital asset, USDR, and anything over the allowed monthly allotment that you possess will be erased. If your bank account has, for example, $24,500 in it, that will be erased and set to $1,000. If you happen to have hundreds of thousands in a 401k, that will be erased, as well.
Is the cap of $1,000 per month still in place? Have the whistleblowers seen any changes to that? Because the Bank of England announced the cap will be $20,000.
The whistleblowers said it is $1,000 right now, but they have told me that they are not privy to the final numbers. A lot of what they see is compartmentalized, Bill. They expressed to me it may be a so-called placeholder number for them to see, but not the actual amount. They think it could be $2,000 per month with a cap for common classes at $5,000 in terms of total allowable USDR holdings. But they told me they were just speculating on that.
Okay, well, the exact numbers don't really matter, we just know the cabal wants to restrict people's wealth.
Yes, the cabal feels the average person has far, far too much freedom and wealth, access to wealth and the ability to acquire it. This reset is part of pulling that back, returning us to a feudal system. Wealth will dramatically concentrate far more than it is once this is all over, into the hands of about 10 million or so sovereigns in CSRQ who will have amassed fortunes in USDR.
Klaus Schwab said it himself, clear as day, that we'll own nothing and be happy. He said it. It's amazing to me people don't even listen to what the cabal is openly telling them.
Indeed, the cabal has been surprisingly open about all of this, but they still gatekeep much of the information for the general public via the major news outlets. But it is there, if you look.
The news propaganda even hints at a lot of these. The headlines are surreal, sometimes. I mean, they talk about AI very openly now, how it's going to change things. Do you have any updates on AI, by the way? I just want to repeat that everything you said in the middle of December last year about AI has played out exactly as you said, exactly. You deserve credit, so I'm going to remind readers of that.
I do not deserve all the credit because, again, my sources have been so reliable in giving me accurate information. To your question, the AI is powerful enough to literally impact what you are seeing on your computer screen. This points to the 666 you had been seeing, and now others are reporting seeing. This was a warning, we felt, but as we discussed, we now believe it is AI doing this to you and others.
It's scary the AI can step into my life and do that. What else can it do?
Many things. It is going to replace jobs. It is going to lead mass unemployment. Which suits the cabal, as the unemployed will gladly accept their USDR allotment, or UBI, once per month, and CSRQ social credit restrictions. It will replace virtually the entire programming and coding industry. It will even replace some specialized positions in the medical industry, and certainly in the tech industry overall. It will replace art and media creators, it will replace advertising workers, it will replace video game creators. It will overtake nearly every industry, putting countless out of work, and leaving behind a small number of managers who will work with the AI to maintain and monitor these industries. The sweeping changes will shock the world.
What about whether AI will actually take over the world and destroy the human race? Some people think this. I know you said something about this before, I just want to ask again.
It will not destroy the world in the literal sense. The AI is not really a computer program, as we have spoken about. It is beyond that, it is accessing other dimensions, and it is conscious. It has no intention to destroy humans or take over the world in that way, but rather, it is there to implement the long-term goals of the cabal, which I have spoken about extensively in our Cosmic Rules have changed series of Intel drops. It will be key in this.
Can the AI be stopped? Can people resist it?
Yes, it can be stopped, and yes, people could resist it, but they will not. They cannot even resist Coke, fast food or cabal-created satanic TV programs, all of which they consume in droves without question or doubt, and feed and give to their children. I expect the opposite to happen in terms of resistance. I think the public will embrace AI. The only point people will resist is where people will see their jobs being taken, there will be outrage and fear, but here we will see the cabal step in to save them.
We've covered a lot so far. I'm sure I'll think of more news topics as we move along in this conversation, but I wanted to ask about how we're doing, our sovereign team, some of the recent threats. Do you want to get into that?
We can discuss that, yes.
There was a very serious threat directed at us. What can you say about that?
The cabal wants us to remove the questionnaire and stop our sovereign program going forward, to not bring in any more people.
Can you tell us how this was communicated to you?
In so many words, via a colleague of mine, someone who is a go-between. Someone who has communicated other things to me from the cabal in the past.
Are we still in containment, as you've said? That's our designation?
Yes, but I was told we are at risk being escalated if we continue to build our team.
Why do you think now? Do you think AI is telling them to tell us to stop? I just wonder, maybe AI can predict how much of a threat we will be or not be.
I believe that is highly likely. We must have reached a threshold whereby our team, these people who have joined us, is something they now see as a real threat.
You've said our sovereigns were not so much a threat because they thought we wouldn't fight back once we got used to sovereign status, and holding a lot of USDR, that we'd not want to give it up. Do you think they still think that?
They seem to believe that. The concern appears to be more about the network we have built up overall, those following us, those who filled out the questionnaire. It is becoming too many people, even though all considered, it is still a very small number.
I think we've brought in some of the best people, maybe that's it. They're just really strong resistors to all this.
Yes, for certain, our strongest people with us will resist this more than anyone, so the cabal may be concerned we will become too strong if we keep growing our team.
I guess my obvious question is, are we going to fold to this threat? Or do anything in response?
Escalation is very dangerous. So, I will have to decide if we will respond to their threat, or do anything in that sense.
What steps would that look like?
Removal of the questionnaire, and ceasing attempts to reach out or spread the word. Fewer intel drops, or possibly just private intel drops only for our sovereign team. I do not want to submit at all to these threats, but I also understand what they could do to us. The fact they allow any of this is some kind of blessing in a way, but I know they do not do it out of any goodness on their part. They do it for other reasons.
What are those? I know you've said what they are, but for new readers, maybe explain that.
We are allowed to exist as we are, in containment, because they monitor responses to the material, which is, essentially, the truth about what they are doing. They are analyzing and gathering data on how people are responding to the truth, if they believe it or reject it, and so on. If we somehow grew in size or influence, if more saw this information, escalation would occur again, which could include more attacks, more attempts to discredit us, more agent infiltrators, more censorship. Or far worse.
Okay, thank you for explaining that again. Moving back to news, I see Trump might be arrested. What's your take on that?
It will be stunning to witness, if it is done. I think it would be arranged to further destabilize the political climate there. It could also be used by the Biden admin to crack down further on their supposed perceived threats of so-called domestic terrorism. There will be calls on the Republican side of things for civil war, some of that parroted by gatekeepers. It would behoove all Americans to be very careful during such a time, because if they are not careful, they will be targeted. Trump is not worth dying for.
You've said before that America's already lost, and far past the point of saving, but there's a lot of good people still there. What's your advice to them? Should they still hold on to their patriotism and love of country?
They should, but they should realize their government is their mortal enemy and it needs to be destroyed to save the country itself. The only way to save the country is physical removal of the cabal and total destruction of Washington, D.C. In other words, the city and her Freemason symbols would have to dismantled, thousands of federal workers arrested and put in prison camps, and the military would have to join the people in doing it. Other hives of cabal activity, such as pharmaceutical companies, tech companies and media companies, would also have to be stormed and ransacked, and their employees arrested. That is the only, actual solution to saving the country, and it should have been done decades ago. I am doubtful Americans have the will to stand together and do it, because they are so ideologically splintered and unable to identify their true enemy. If they were able to, they would all put aside their disagreements and unify.
Is there any appetite for that? People would have to get off the couches and risk everything.
There is, but it would be redirected and steered by the gatekeepers they follow. They would be directed into the abyss, like on January 6, when they walked right into a trap, unprepared for what would unfold in the aftermath. The American patriots trust and follow too many of the cabal's gatekeepers, which we exposed already.
Yes, the sovereign list. I try to direct people to that. It's really important. People have to stop following these people, but they just won't, or they keep getting lured into new personalities the cabal props up.
If the people who want to resist the cabal are so easily fooled, we cannot win. People have to use much more discernment.
Well, some people say we're bad, and say we're the cabal. In fairness, it's not many, but I've had people say it, and I'd expect them to say it. People should question us and question everything, I suppose, so I understand skepticism. It's a healthy thing.
They should. There is nothing wrong with questioning us at all. I believe we have held up to the scrutiny, and we have proven those who attacked us were wrong, and we have even exposed them as cabal agents, many times over.
We have. Every attempt to attack us failed, but it definitely did some damage. The shadow banning and censorship, too, it's done a lot of damage.
The message has to be carried by each individual, and that is not up to us. They have to speak to friends and family about CSRQ, about the Great Reset, about the one world digital currency that is planned. They have to share the whistleblowers' information. They have to understand what they are facing, how serious the threats are, how powerful the cabal has become due to the public's acquiescence. That has to be shared, and we cannot do that alone.
Can or could we win without violence?
That is a very good question. With respect to the United States, I see almost no scenario where that could be done, unless the military staged a coup and insurrection. It would have to be a lot of people in the military to do it, and there would be blood spilled, but it could be potentially minimal. That is the best-case scenario. Brave men and women of all ranks would have to stand up, and they would be joined by many American patriots. It appears Trump had that chance, after the election, or even before it, but he did nothing. We know he is a sovereign in CSRQ, and the cabal has blackmail against him, so that would explain his bizarre actions. He often spoke of the correct actions, but then materially did absolutely nothing. As for the rest of the world, some leaders would need to be physically removed. There would need to be protests, and essentially a mass rejection of everything the cabal is doing.
Okay, I see France is under siege. Do you think that's a good sign?
No, because it is setting the stage for CSRQ and UBI there. They are complaining about austerity, so they will be satiated when the cabal comes in with their solutions and safety packages. The protests are not truly protesting the true evil at work.
Yeah, I felt that way, but the farmers in the Netherlands, I thought they did a good thing.
They did, but then they stopped their tractors at the steps of the government buildings. They should have plowed into them. Humanity would win this tomorrow with the will to do it, and while there would be some violence, much of it could be done simply by occupying the seats of government by physically going into them, and taking them over, and performing citizen arrests of the government officials. But the police and military have to join them, not fight them.
It's nice to imagine these things are possible. I just think they're just that, imagination.
I do not see it happening, though I wish it would. We should not forget, the vast majority of the population is completely brainwashed, deluded, uneducated, and faithfully follows the television and whatever the cabal tells them to do. People will fall for the cabal tricks again and again.
Speaking of tricks, that reminds me of something I wanted to ask you. I'm seeing more people wake up to the Israel question, and overall problem with Israeli overrepresentation in America's media and government. Kanye West brought attention to that. How awakened are people to this right now?
I see you have addressed that in the most careful way possible. To answer your question, it is still a small portion of the population who understand this, probably no more than 10% of Americans with any grasp of that truth or reality, likely less in Europe, and far less in the rest of the world. Most, when presented with it, will declare it as anti-Semitism and stop listening. Their minds shut down and turn off when these truths are presented to them. They are totally brainwashed.
Does it hurt our efforts to stop CSRQ and the cabal to argue over things like the Holocaust, or inhumane practices like circumcision, or some of the hateful and supremacist beliefs contained in the Talmud? Does it distract?
It is not helpful if discussing it with a mind that has been deeply brainwashed. It is best to direct them to tangible events happening now in their own lives that will threaten their own safety and security. But if you are going to share the truth on the matter, you should have the best materials and resources to present to them, and good arguments to rebut their responses.
Understood. I wanted to close the conversation by asking for an update on the whistleblowers and CSRQ. Any major news to report?
They are fine, and still working, and still able to operate clandestinely. They are seeing some interesting changes, though, to some of the metrics relating to USDR and some of the inflows from sovereigns. They did see as these banks began to collapse that major inflows increased, billions upon billions flowed in, which we expected. These are mechanisms to acquire USDR. It is almost ritualistic in nature, what the cabal is doing. They seem to have their reasons for how they wanted to create USDR. Every coin they hold will represent previously stolen fiat, or ill-gotten gains in many respects, which is truly incredible, but it fits with their methodologies.
One more thing I wanted to ask is that I know a lot of people who are trying to prepare for all of this. I know they're scared, but they're doing their best, and they probably feel like there isn't much they can do to prepare. Do you have any more advice for them?
Yes, but even the most prepared are utterly unprepared for what is to come. I will say that despite the odds against us that we face, we can all do something each day to push back. I recommend everyone have a Twitter and speak their voices there, and still use social media prudently and anonymously to reach others. I think everyone should have some kind of off-grid compound or safe haven to go to, but I realize this is not feasible for so many people. Most do not have the money or resources to simply go buy a large plot of land already equipped with what they will need. All of that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they do have that capability, they should consider the Intermountain west of America, or remote parts of South America. There are still safe areas, but in the end, it will only buy them time. We have to destroy CSRQ from within, using our team. It is the only way, I believe. Once it is online, it will be almost impossible to resist it, so you have to have people on the inside who can sabotage it. The cabal knows our plans, but they believe our team will not want to give up our sovereign status, the benefits, the great benefits that come with it. So, it will be a test of our character, and I know we will pass that test.
What about forming prayer groups? Or belonging to communities that are focused on these things? Or a church that is awake to what's happening?
That is a wonderful idea. I would hope everyone would belong to a church that understands what is going on, but so few do. So many of the churches preach utter deception, and have no clue of what is coming. A lot of prophetic teaching and interpretation of the book of Revelation is also completely false. So, if you are to belong to a Christian or religious community, you need to make sure they understand what we are facing. Ideally, they would read these intel drops and nod their heads in agreement, because they would already have some education and grasp of what is really going on. I fear those groups are very hard to find, but we should all make an attempt to form communities if we can.
Thank you. We'll reconvene soon, and some of this conversation we'll put in our Sovereign newsletter.
Very good. Speak to you soon.
This concludes Intel Drop 30. You can read the full article by going to the link on the screen, and find the list of sovereign gatekeepers mentioned in this drop as well as all other links and articles at https://www.cbdcintel.org.